Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this. Know that I appreciate you. I want to first say thank you to all of those who are going to watch this live, and thank you to all of those who watch this in the replay or in a video that I do later on, post up later on. I'm coming on here to do something that I don't know I've ever seen done before, and I'm doing it, trying to get this done because I know it's Sunday morning, it's 10:30 in the morning, and most people are getting ready for church, whether they're going to the actual church building to worship together or they are going to do it virtually. My church service doesn't start until 11. So I got a little bit of time to get this out before I actually start watching our church services. So I wanted to come on and again do something that I've not really seen done before, and that was to make a plea. And I'm making the plea not on behalf of myself, but for someone else. Also, let me thank you for the prayers for my husband and myself. Even if I don't put out the call for prayer, I know that there is someone praying for my husband and myself. We just recently had another ER visit where I had to take him to the ER because of how he was feeling and what was going on, and that started Saturday evening, and we didn't get home until probably 4:30. Friday evening. It started Friday evening, and we didn't get home until probably 4:30 Saturday morning. And again, even though I don't always post the prayer request, I know that there are people out there that pray for us anyway. So I thank you for doing that. So back to this plea that I have that is not, again, for me per se, but for others. So I've been talking about this book for a while now, probably close to a year now. I've been talking about this book and been trying to promote this book and get this book out there so that people can purchase this book and enjoy the book the way that it's meant to be enjoyed, in full range of emotions, whether it is laughter, whether it is in tears, whether it is with enjoyment, whether it is with sympathy or empathy. I wanted everyone to get this book, and not just because I had something to do with it, but because of the people that contributed to this book. So the book that I'm talking about, that I have been talking about again for almost a year, is this book here, Life Took a Turn. It is published by the Pop Writers Guild, and it is a book, an anthology, if you will, of poetry and short stories. I have been talking about this book for quite some time now. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a history so that you know why this plea or this request is not for me. So I joined the Pop Writers Guild in 2014. And with them, I published a book called Reveal Reflections. This book here that I'm pointing to, Reveal Reflections. And I enjoyed being with that group of people and writing with them and creating that book and putting it out there for the public to see and to read. And I was really very honored when the senior guild master and CEO of the Pop Writers Guild gave me my own group to lead. And that group I was given back in 2015. And it was at the time that we started the group, there were several people a part of the group. I think we started out with, not including myself, we started out with I want to say 6 people. We started out with 6 people. And 2 of those people fell off early on. And not because they didn't want to they fell off for whatever their reason was. I won't even go into why or why not. But they fell off because it was what was best for them during that time for whatever reason. And then the remaining 4 finished the book. The remaining 4 completed the book, and then things began to happen. And this title for the book is so apropos, Life Took a Turn, because we did go through so many twists and turns while creating this book. And we got the book finished, and right before the book finished, our senior guildmaster relocated. Right after, she relocated. She left Chicago and moved to the South, moved to Tennessee. And a year later, probably a year later, I relocated. I left Chicago, and the husband and I left Chicago, and we moved to Texas. So the group started in 2015. It finished in 2016. And between 2016 and 17, the book was put on hold. Even though it was complete, it was put on hold. No one forgot about the book. It's just that life was happening around us. Things were happening around us. And it caused us to put the book on the back burner. So we eventually got back together in 2019, I think it is, that we got back together. We got back together in 2019, and we determined to finish the book. And when I say finish the book, it still had, even though the things or the pieces were written, the book was written, we still had to go through the editing process, the proofreading process, and then the printing process, the actual publishing of the book, that part. So we did that. We went through the editing process, and life took a turn again, and we encountered some issues. And then we went through the proofreading process, and all of these things were coming up against us in order to get this book to its finished product. And the 4 writers that remained at the time were really very excited about making certain that this book was completed. They were really very excited about making sure this book finished, that we saw it all the way through to the finish line, which at one point the title was supposed to allude a finish line, but we changed it mid-editing process, because again, it's the title that it is now, Life Took a Turn, was so apropos for what was happening with us as a whole. But then we had 2 more people fall off. So now we are down to 2 people. Now, that doesn't mean that the book is incomplete. The book is still fully intact. We've not changed anything. All of the stories are still there. All of the stories are still there. It is a complete book. It is still almost 300 pages. It still has an art gallery in the back, which actually for this publication is a comic strip. So it's still there and intact. And we've finished it. It's done. It's sitting at the printers waiting to get to us. It is sitting at the printers waiting to be shipped out to us. And it can't get shipped because it is not 100% paid for. Now, this is where the plea or the request comes in. Because we dropped from 6 people to 4 people to 2 people, the share of the cost of the book has been dispersed from 6 people to 4 people to 2 people. And in actuality, it's not even so much, it's not truly 2 people. It is still 4 people, but here's the difference between when we initially started and where we are now. So when we initially started, like I said, we had 6 writers, 6 contributing writers, and I led the group. 6 contributing writers, and I led the group. And then we had those 2 writers fall off toward the beginning. So now we're down to 4 contributing writers, and I led the group. And somewhere in the process of this whole thing, I was asked to contribute some pieces because we had gone from 6 writers. I'm sorry, if I could count, that'd be great. We'd gone from 6 writers to 4 writers. So the amount of pieces that we had initially intended to have in the book had been reduced. It had been reduced. So I contributed, and it ended up not being much. I contributed 2 pieces to this book. So we went from 6 writers to 4 writers, and then I contributed 2 pieces. And then, as I said, we then went down to 2 writers. But my 2 pieces were still there. I don't consider myself necessarily a writer in this book because this book was not ever supposed to be about me. This book was supposed to be about the people that contributed their stories, their time, their effort in the book. So we went from 6 writers to 4 writers, and then I contributed 2 pieces. So the cost of the book, which we really didn't get until towards the end of last year, the beginning of this year, we started getting the cost of the actual book. So the cost that would have been dispersed amongst the 6 writers that initially started was now dispersed among 4 writers. And then we had those 2 writers fall off towards the end. So now we've gone from 4 writers to 2 writers. So that means that the full cost would have been dispersed between just those 2 people. But in fairness, the senior guildmaster and I took on a part of the cost of getting this book published because it wasn't through the fault of anyone that we've now had 4 people fall off of contributing to the book, or 4 writers. It wasn't anyone's fault that we went from 6 to 4 to 2. It just wasn't. But so that the full weight was not, the full financial weight was not put on just those 2 writers. Like I said, the senior guildmaster and myself, we took on a portion of the cost of the book. So here's the ask, here's the request, here's the plea. If you have been paying attention to anything that I have posted over the last 3 years, you know, and actually probably more than 3 years, but it's just been more prevalent, more prominent, more on the forefront the last 3 years, then you know that there is only one solid income coming into my household. Because in 2017, my husband became deathly ill and could not work, even though he tried. He could not work. And then in 2019 is when he was finally classified as disabled. And then let's go back. I'm sorry, I did skip. In 2017, he was working, even though he was ill. So he could not sustain a job because he was always so ill. In 2018, I became deathly ill. And then we went from having 2 incomes to 1 income to no income. And then when I got over my illness, which thankfully I was able to do without any true residual effects, we went back to 1 income. My husband was finally declared disabled in 2019. So because I really only have 1 solid income coming in, which is mine because I'm back at work full time, 97% of my income goes to the household. It goes to making sure that the bills are paid, the rent is paid, that, you know, it goes to making certain that there's food in the house. It goes to making certain that there's gas in the car so that I can get back and forth to work. So I don't really have a whole lot of extra income. So I've not been able to keep up my end of the bargain with getting this book, Life Took a Turn, published by the Pop Writers Guild, an anthology of poetry and short stories. I've not been able to keep up my end of the bargain in getting that book into the hands of the people that actually wrote the book, contributed to the book, took time away from their families, took finances out of their pockets, out of their households to get this book done. I have not been able to keep up my end of the bargain because I don't have the finances to do that. Again, 97%, if not 99%, of my income goes towards the household. I say 97% because there are some things that I do to keep my website going, because I need to have a website for the things that I do outside of what I do for pay. So 97% of my income goes towards the household. With that 97% going towards the household and very little going towards what I do outside of that, I don't have the funds to pay to get this book in the hands of the writers, therefore in the hands of the customers, in the hands of the readers. My portion is $500. My portion that's left, my balance that's left, is $500. All of the other people, the other three, out of the four of us, the other three, have paid their portion. I still have a $500 balance, and I want this book to go into the hands of the people that spent a year of their life writing and contributing and taking time away from their households and money away from their households to get this book done. But they can't because I'm holding them up. And I'm holding them up because I can't pay my part of what needs to be paid. This book is $25, and it's worth $25. It's worth the $25 because, again, it's almost 300 pages with the gallery in the back, which is a comic strip. It's worth the $25. So in order for me to keep up my end of the bargain, I have to sell this book at $25. I can't offer the discount that I was offering before of $20 because the book is done. And I am holding up the two diligent people that stuck it out to the end to get this book. I am holding up their progress. I am holding up their stepping forward. I am holding up them getting this book out to their people. I'm holding them up. They have worked so hard to get this book written. They have done everything that they needed to do. Again, they took a year, and this, I'm just talking about that first year. I'm not even talking about the year it took us once we got back together and the time that that took, and paying for the editor, and then that blowing up in our faces, and doing what they needed to do to stick with it, and then going through having two more people fall off at the very end. The heartache that came with that. I'm not asking you to buy this book from me. Life took a turn. I'm not asking you to buy this book from me because I want to make a profit. This isn't about me. This is about the group of writers that I led that took time out of their lives, took money from their households to get this book written, published, printed, so that they can so they can sell it to the people. They can sell it to the people that they have been talking about or talking to about this book for so very long. I want them to be able to do what it is that they started out intending to do. I want them, they are technically published authors with this book. They're published authors, but they need the book in hand to sell. And I'm holding them up because I don't have my $500 to get the book from the printer to the actual writer. So I'm asking you, in order for me to make this happen, I have to sell 20 books at $25 each in order to pay my $500, my balance of $500, my portion of $500. And I say balance because I've already paid something towards it, but that $500 is what's left. So I want to sell these books, not for me, but for them, because they worked so hard to get this book out. They worked so hard to get this book out. They were so diligent and so patient, and they moved forward even when things around them said, you don't have time for this. Even when things around them were saying, what is the point to this? And I say things and not people because there were so many things that were happening around us. That's why the title, Life Took a Turn, is so apropos. That is why I want this book done. I want it in their hands. They worked so hard to make sure that it was done. Like I said, from six writers to 4 writers, to write as it's at the printer's office. It's at the printers. We are working on the final edits. We went from 6 to 4 to 2. And those 2 that are left, I love dearly. I love them dearly. And that's not to say that I don't love the other 4 that fell off. But these 2 that stuck this thing out, I love them tremendously because they had the wherewithal to, even though things are falling down around them, to say, I worked too hard to let this go by the wayside. I worked too hard to let this just sit on the shelf in the printer's office or the printer's, facility, warehouse. I worked too hard to see this book end up in a $5 or less book bin. I worked too hard. They worked too hard. So I'm asking you, if you go to my website, the link is there. I'm going to show it again. The link is there. If you go to my website, JuaitanRobinson.com, click on the books tab. All of my books are there. All 3 of those, well, this one is sold out now. It'll be republished another day. But these 2 books are there, as well as my journal. All of my books are there, as well as the journal. But this is the book that I want you to buy. $25. Almost 300 pages of poetry and short stories with an art gallery in the back that happens to be a comic strip. And the comic strip was created and not just written, but drawn out by one of the contributors in this book. Now, if you know anything about pop writers, that you know that with every book there's a gallery in the back. Every book there's a gallery in the back. Most of those galleries are done by people who are outside of the group. This gallery, this comic strip that's in the back of this book, was actually not only written but drawn out by one of the contributors, one of the authors in this book. We're talking almost 300 pages. 97%, 95% of this book is, I'll say 97, and I'll tell you why in a sec. 97% of this book is true. True life stories. True life incidences. 97% of this book is. And the reason I say 97 and not 95, because there is a chapter in the book that is dedicated to fiction. It's called The Chair. But there's one story in particular in that chapter, The Chair, where I truly believe that the person that wrote that story feels as if he has been encountered or is being confronted by his current self, his future self, and his past self. The chapter's entitled The Chair. In that chapter, each person had to write a story around finding an empty chair in an otherwise empty dark room. What's the story with the chair? And I believe that the story that was written by Donnell Bonaparte is a true reflection of how he may feel from time to time when he is not doing that thing that God pressed down in him to do. When he's not doing this creative thing called writing on a consistent basis, he is approached by his current self, his future self, and his past self. I believe that story is a true story. So I say 97% of this book is true to life, with that other 3% being fiction. It's short stories, it's poetry, there's artwork, it's beautiful. There are stories in this book that will make you cry, that will make you question some things in your life, that will make you outright laugh out loud. Go to, please, my website, JuaitanRobinson.com. Click on the Books tab and purchase this book, Life Took a Turn, published by the Pop Writers Guild, an anthology of poetry and short stories, for $25. That $25 that you spend will go towards me making certain that I will take that $25. This is what I'm saying. I will take that $25 and send it to the printer directly. I will send it to the printer because I want the two remaining writers, the two remaining contributors, to get this book in their hands so that they can sell it to those people that they have been talking to for 5 years. They've been talking to these people for 5 years about this book, about the fact that they have written a book, that they've contributed to a book, that they want this book in the hands of their friends, their family, their co-workers. I want those two remaining contributors to make certain that they have this book, but I'm holding them up because I have to pay the final balance of $500 and I don't have it. So that is my ask, that is my request, that is my plea. Go to my website, JuaitanRobinson.com, click on the Books tab and purchase Life Took a Turn, published by the Pop Writers Guild. It is an anthology of poetry, short stories, and you get the art gallery, which is a comic strip, in the back of the book. 97% of that book is true, with 3% being fiction. These writers poured out so much of themselves. They poured out so much of themselves in this book, and I just want them to get the book in their hands. I don't have to make a dime from it. I don't have to make a profit from it at all. My desire is to make certain that they get what they put in, that they get out what they put in. We promised them that they would be published authors at the end of this, and that's what I want for them. They are published authors. They are published authors. But they don't have a book to sell because it's sitting on the printer's warehouse, in the printer's warehouse, waiting for me to pay my portion before it can go out to them. $25, Life Took a Turn. It's an anthology, a collection of poetry and short stories, published by the Pop Writers Guild. The 2015 group is the group that I led. We went from 6 writers to 4 writers to 2 writers. JuaitanRobinson.com, click on the Books tab, purchase the book. It is now 10:59. I need to get myself prepared to get to my church service electronically. So that's what I'm going to do next. But thank you. Life Took a Turn. JuaitanRobinson.com. Click on Books. purchase this book for $25. Help me keep up my end of the bargain by helping the contributors, the two that are left, the two remaining contributors, get their books in their hands so that they can sell their books to the people that they've been talking to for 5 years about this book. With that, peace and blessings. Remember to walk in your purpose and know that I appreciate you. Enjoy your Sunday, and if I don't see you again this week, enjoy the rest of your week.